the hype for this year's RAC has begun. Yeah, massive entry.
The banter started.
Yeah, absolutely. And I was out marshalling on the last one, and I was waiting for the TR to come through, and I was waiting for the Stratas to come through because they're just two iconic cars. So do you think you're going to thrash Seb in the autumn?
Thanks, Chris, for putting me on the spot there. Well, we've got unfinished business there, haven't we? Who's in the championship, but Seb's a great competitor, and his dad Steve does so much for the sport. It's great. We go out on the events. We're competitors at the end of the day, and I'm a very competitive person. But last year's British Championship was great fun to be involved in. I know we never won the championship, but I was pleased for Seb that he won it. As well. It's great. To see there wasn't no animosity, and we were all having a bit of fun and banter all along the way. And that's the good fun about doing these events and everything else. But everyone's getting on with everybody, and it's just good fun. We're competitive at the end of the day, but we're all enjoying it. We're out there rallying in the forest and the sound and the thing. And it's memories, making memories that we can all remember.
You were working with Tony Pond. Special times?
Yeah, definitely. I was a 26-year-old young lad, very impressionable. Looking up to Tony, who was probably the quickest British driver at the time. And he had this charisma, this thing about him and everything, and working with him and seeing and sitting in a car with him. I remember the Monte Carlo recce, getting in the trophy car, and then Estoril, Portuguese rally. Just got over there and said, "Oh, Dave, come in the car," and we go out and do the Estoril stages, and the crowds were already coming onto the stages a week before the actual event. And we know from Portugal where the crowd would just open up in front of you, Chris. Thousands and thousands of people there. But Pondy, in those elements on tarmac was phenomenal. Just sit there watching his feet. It was very special times, and everything. And we ended up building that Rover 820. For the Isle of Man Challenge, and we broke the speed 100 mile an hour. I think it's about 104 average. I know one of the tests we'd done earlier in the week, it was about 107, but of course that wasn't the official. But 104 is as quick as the sidecars at the time, and I know Tony could have gone quicker, if he had more power, but the car was only geared for 153, and if you watch the in-car, coming into Ramsey, he's just flat to the floor and everywhere, and but yeah, very, very impressive driver.
So have you been in the car with Mark?
I've been in an escort with Mark. The other month this was, we were over in Wales, and one of Merion's Wales motorsport cars, a friend of mine bought two, and so we had to go over there, and I took Mark along, and we done some testing, and Mark dragged me into the car, and it's quite interesting. I said, look, I'm a bad passenger, I'm getting old. Go steady. But yeah, that was phenomenal. But the TR, been in with Chris, but not with Mark, because like I say, just let the young ones get on with it, Chris.
Yeah, I mean, I'm not very brave when it comes to it, but
especially as a passenger.
Yeah. But I mean, there's just the speedy carries in the stages. Some of the stuff from the RAC.
I know, where I'd be changing down a gear and braking, he's changing up.
Yeah.
That's it.
So, do you want to talk through the spec on the car? So, start at the front.
Yeah.
What kind of spots have they got on it?
Piers. I want to keep everything in period, make it look right. We can't get rid of the old Corellos that they had. They're all gone now. So, pier lights, we buy them and use them. Look very similar, and they give a good light. I know Mark would like a better light, and Chris said the same. But it's historic rallying. Yeah. And I'm a firm believer, look, drive it how the boys did back in the day and enjoy it for that. Yeah. Don't fit laser lamps on and all the rest of it, because that just distracts from what we're trying to achieve at the end of the day. So.
And the engine itself?
Engine, brand new blocks, cast by Cosworth, machined by John Judds of Formula 1 fame, as you know. Steel cranks, everything's steel, which was allowed in the day. Cranks, rods, all the rocker gear. I'll be able to show you some of that later on, but it's everything that you know, a wish list of bits you need is in the engines. 448 Webers on a handmade manifolds, which is all in period. We've redone the dry sump pumps, exactly the same as they were in period as well, which cost an arm and a leg. But we've just tried to replicate everything as it was back in the day. And that's what we've done with the first 3 cars. And it's been great.
So what about the suspension? What have you done to that?
Just, it's got a Bilstein, you know, everything we're controlled by the FIA regulations in that respect. So we're just on the Bilsteins. We have revised the damper rates, bump stops, different thing, geometry, fine tuning it because the tyre technology has changed to what we had, you know, 40 years ago. Yeah. So we've just fine tuned now, and we found a lot of speed by making small changes, but you know, just simple little things, but you know, brought the cars on a lot. And you see some of the footage, and even impresses me the way the car flies, lands, gets traction, and everything. Now it stops and the way it turns in, and that's what's impressed Mark a lot, is how quick, how the car has no vices as such, nothing really bad. You know, like going in that Escort with Mark, like I said earlier, was impressive. But then, you know, an Escort, you're waiting for the power to come on with a TR, and we maybe have a slightly slower midpoint in the corner, but then coming out, we're so much quicker. Yeah. And that, you know, so suspension has been optimised, and gearbox, just reliability, trying to make sure everything's reliable, because that was always a weak point. Axles, or the Jag, which is homologated, all the stuff there, but just played around with plate pressures, and different bits like that, crown and pinion ratios, which is all homologated. So it's just going through and looking at everything. And now with 004, we've looked again at the latest FIA regulations in historics and see that we can run plastic windows and bits like this, which we never had in a day.
What kind of sort of man hours have you got in this? You mentioned 600 for the shell.
Yeah, just on the body shells, 600 on the body shells, and then the hours, you know, all the bits and pieces inside. I'd hate to think, Chris, you know, the hours, I think, crikey, you know, thousands of hours it is, you know, because everything is bespoke with us, you know, we're having to do stuff and do it ourselves. If we could buy the stuff in, which we can now with all the TR stuff, we got the stuff on the shelf now. So if you wanted to build a car, I could supply you all the bits, you know, and everything to build a copy of our cars. But everything else we're doing from scratch, and that does take time. It's like the other day I come in and thought, right, I'll just put the front hubs together. End of the day, I'm still not fully finished in it, you know, with all the bearings and the solid spacers and different bits and pieces like that to do. And time just, next thing you look around, it's sort of 6 o'clock at night, you know, but then it's what we enjoy doing. So it's...
So when's the 4th car going to be out on the stages?
Soon, you know, we got 2 big events this year. Of course, we've got Ypres, which is historically for the TR is a fantastic event. There is a rally coming up in 2-3 weeks in south of France, European round, which we'd like to have done, but you know, I don't think I'll be fully fit myself then. It's only sort of 7 weeks after my knee operation, and Mark's still recovering from a shoulder injury. Yeah. So this getting old isn't good. But you know, as soon as then we need to do a good test program, and that's what we want to do. And then coming up for the end of the year for the RAC, of course, with 2 cars. Wow. Yeah, the entries are in, they've been accepted, so that's what we're going to plan to do. New service vans being built, and everything, and probably another car. So, you know, 4 or 5's coming along. So that'll be coming hopefully for the end of the year.
And so, yeah, Mark's proven it's a
rally winner.
It's a winner.
It's a winner, yeah.
And, you know, is the market opening up?
It is. It's, you know, we can't make a car as cheap as an Escort. No 2 ways about that. Again, it goes back to the thing, you know, the amount of stuff that's available on the market. If we could, it'd be lovely. So, you know, we're more expensive than an Escort, but then I believe we're not as dear as a Porsche. So we're in between, but, you know, people are looking at it now. 2 sold behind me, that's sold, and everything else to a UK chap. and everything, so that's good. Hopefully he'll use it. I don't know whether he'll keep it and just look at it in his collection or come out and do some events. Hopefully he will, European events, it's free. And we've got interest, and I think that's why we need to go to Europe as well, to prove it on the European stage, because against all the European historic cars.
Yeah, and I think you and I are interested in the sport, and obviously we've got a big focus on it. But actually, if you were going to enter the sport, you could be taken down the Escort route, or some of the more traditional cars that have been filling the historic market. We still need to sell these, don't we? We still need to make sure we market them and
that's what we're trying to do. Now get some time to get them exposure out there better and market them, and people to see that the parts are there behind, because a lot of people won't have confidence if they can't have a car and say damage an engine or damage a gearbox. They can't get one next day, which we can here. In flight cases there's brand new engines all built up, which I'll show you in a minute, and gearboxes, axles, just everything. It's all available on the shelf now, which gives people a lot of confidence then. And the car, I think, once people drive them, like you have, Chris, it's a lovely car. I know a few people sat in them and they can't believe how comfortable it is. It's a lovely driving position in a way, and comfortable. You're sitting in an Escort and you feel like you're sat on this, like on a bar stool, all this glass around, you feel like you're really exposed. Well, in a TR you do sit down in it.
No, I'm 6'6", and I managed to fit in it, it's not sat in a Rolls Royce, but for a competition car, it does feel comfortable, and you do feel connected to the car, don't you?
The car feels part of you. I think that's the beauty of it. I've never driven an Escort much, but it just feels, like I said earlier, you just feel like you're sat on top of something, not in it. But perhaps I'm biased.
So what I didn't ask you, how powerful is the engine in this thing?
We're a comfortable side of 300 brake horsepower, and good torque and drivability. And again, that's helped, I think, since back 40 years ago. Just knowledge has come on, tolerances are better, equipment's better, and that. So I think we have got more power than they had back in the day. A genuine 300 brake horsepower, because back in the day it was probably 280, 285. So it's and the way the engine picks up if you watch inside, and it rev to 8.2, and most people's V8s, don't go nowhere near that. And you watch Mark's in-car thing, you watch the rev counter like I do sometimes in the in-car, and you can see he's getting up there. He says, I haven't revved it that high. I said, okay, but he does, and then that's the greatness of it, having that rev band. You can hold the gear that much longer, coming into a corner or accelerating out of a corner, and it's got some good drivability with it. Okay.
And having somebody like Mark Higgins, was it 5 times?
Three times.
3 times.
We can say 5 here like that.
Okay.
I think it's officially 3.
Yeah, but I mean, Mark, 3 times British champion. All that experience. That's got to be a massive boost for the team as well.
Coming into the team and working with Mark, as we've done with other drivers, the level of professionalism he brings in and what he expects. I know what we got to do to deliver to Mark to give him the right package at the end of the day. And we've seen it though, once we sorted things out, there's always a few niggling problems, as there always is, different bits and pieces. Good thing about Mark though, we can drive around them as well. Like sometimes we know, we've got an issue, but we need to get to the end of the event, and Mark's brain's capable of dealing with that and making sure, championships what it's after, and getting points and getting the car to the finish. And that's a great level. It shows his level of professionalism, that he's able to adapt that. If you say to him, look, we need to go steady now on this next stage until we can do this or that and the other, he takes that on board. He just doesn't, constantly attack. So he uses his head, which is great.
That's all.
And with the great co-driver of mine, with Carl, very professional, very good co-driver, and that's always. So we got 2 very capable chaps there.
So, tyre-wise, what are you using tyres?
Pirellis. Of course, Mark's been a long time connected with Pirelli, and you know, I was a bit dubious if it was on the tarmac tire on a 13-inch. There's only one size width. We've got different compounds in there, but there's only one width. And the TR normally on tarmac, we were running 11-inch rear rims with a 26/60, a 53 13 tire on the back, and a 23 or 21 front. And I thought, oh my God, you know, how are we going to make the back stay with just the same width as the front tire? But you know, you see it, and Mark come in, he said, Dave, I can't get the back to break away. You know, and you watch that, you know, the traction and the grip we got is phenomenal on a 225 tyre.
And is that tyre technology moved on, is it?
Yeah, I think it definitely is, Chris. You know, the tyre technology and everything else, it's just moved on, and it works fantastic. You know, the level of grip he's got, again, is far superior to what we had 40 years ago. It really is impressive. The Pirelli tyres and the compounds, you know, on Epping, you know, went there and we did take their hardest compound on the back, but come the end of the stages on the long one, Mark was, you know, I think the rears had had their best days.
Yeah, we talk about the expense in the sport, and you know, I've spoke to, you know, friends at Motorsport UK and event organisers. It's so important that actually we market the sport, because if we're going to get sponsors to come and play, they've got to have a shop window in which their products sat in. So, I mean, are you taking that sort of, you know, taking that seriously about how you actually project, you know, your cars, your team in the forthcoming events?
Yeah, we do. You know, also DAE behind the scenes, we do sponsor a lot of local events. And Bath Motor Club, we got the big rally at the end of the year after the RAC actually, and they were the main sponsors there, and local targets, different bits like this. So we do try and help where we can by putting events on to help clubs able to get an event up and running, because we are losing events as well, or have been. Trying to find venues is very difficult now, you know, and for one reason or another. And then the people doing the events, you know, do it for no payment. You know, people, and there's a hell of a lot of work to arrange an event and put an event on nowadays. So it's great that we got enthusiasts or people willing to give their time freely for no cost, just for the love of the sport, and come along. So if we can do our bit, you know, by bringing a car along or helping them out financially with a small bit to make the event run, then we're great. We will do that, and we have done, and we do support that. But like you say, we need younger people to come into the sport and got to make it accessible for all. And that's what we're trying to do. And perhaps, you know, WRC needs to take a think and say, these cars now are too complicated, too expensive. Do we need to bring the tempo down a bit and get out there with a reset switch that we can make the cars more affordable and open the market up more? Because I think that's what we need to do. You know, I believe now a Rally 1 car, 700,000 upwards, and then you got to run the car. It's just,
and we've been here before. I mean, you talked about 86, you know, after the events that year, and you know, the reset there when it went to Group A and Group N, and people were saying, well, it's never going to be the same as Group B. But actually, those cars were really fast once they'd been developed.
They were, they were fast. You know, Group B was just more grunt over form to a certain extent. Well, the Group A and Group N, you know, technology started coming along, suspension and tyres and all the rest of it. And over the course of the stage, they'd be quicker. Didn't look as quick, but they were. And I think, you know, now if we could get these, I know there's a couple of companies looking, not only Rally 2, which still be quite expensive, see, because that's cars, I believe now, 230, 240,000 pounds with associated running costs. We, you know, got an engine after 1,000 clicks, got to have a 28,000 pound rebuild. Well, that's, you know, quite expensive to do. If we could get to an engine that could do a whole season or 2 seasons before it would just need a turbo sale or something like that. It goes back to my comments earlier, Chris, about, you know, the officials putting on the event and then the marshals coming along, giving up their time, driving it, and a lot of them, you know, spending their own fuel money to come in, stand in a forest for 8 hours. Could be raining, cold, especially this November the RAC will be, but they're so passionate and keen for it. And as competitors, again, if we didn't have the people there turning up to help them the event wouldn't run. You know, it wouldn't happen. So again, all those unpaid people that give up their time, fair play to them, you know. We do appreciate it as competitors or preparers, whatever you want to call us. You know, we need them to play the game as well. And hopefully they get the enjoyment of what we've done or made by watching. So it's a two-way street, you know, we all need each other's help.
Yeah. No, I think. Well, yeah, I know people really enjoy these cars. I mean, I love Ford Escorts. They're great.
Yeah.
But after you've seen the first, 30 or 40 of them,
34.
it's nice to see something a bit more.
It is, different. It is, and I'd like to see some Lotus Sunbeams and some Chevette HSRs, come out now, and it'd be great if those were coming, because again, back in the Group 4 period, those cars were very phenomenal. With Toivonen winning the RAC, 81 RAC, with Paul White, and everything, Lotus, some great cars. So if we could get some people to grab the nettle and build some cars, and enter them, that would be great to see.
Yeah, I think there's more out there. I mean, I think I've never seen as many Chevettes over the last couple of years. They are starting to appear now. I know that young Ben Jemison up in York, he's got a nice car there. And actually another great engineering company as well.
Yeah, his dad, remember his dad, and he still does the wheel repairs, I believe, don't they? And everything. I've sent wheels to them, and everything. And but it'd be great if we could see more cars. Although, look at the entry this year's RAC. I think well oversubscribed, 200 entries, full house. That's going to be some event.
I think it's going to be absolutely amazing. And Colin and his team just do a tremendous job.
Good job. It's a shame it can't be run every year, but I would say that. But the bloke's got to have a holiday.
Well, I mean, he's running this the Caledonian Rally now. Every other year. I went up on that. I mean, there was really bad snow last year, but I mean, that was a great entry as well. And the Kielder and Scottish stages. I mean,
that car's prepared, ready to go for that, of course, as you know. And then Mark decided to fall over in his garage and dislocate his shoulder, which is. Like say 84 RAC, walk for miles. You'd park, you'd walk for 2-3 miles to get to one junction. The cars would be lined up all along the forest tracks, and everything. And then that stage would be over, and everybody would then, get back in their cars to hopefully get the service or get to the leapfrog and do the next stage and all the rest of it. Remember I think 82 RAC. I followed that all the way around in a TR8. Slept in the car, like you would do. I remember sleeping outside Alton Park, waiting for the cars to come in and stuff like that. I was young at the time, and that, Chris, but that level of enthusiasm or keenness for the sport, it'd be great if we can. But I think young people are coming into it.
I agree.
It's fun, it's exciting, it's sociable, and it's great.
Yeah, I think the event organisers sort of realising they want safe places for spectators, and they're putting those together now. And I mean, when I go out and compete now, there are people literally lying in some of the stages. I mean, it's nice.
It is. You've seen the crowds coming back into the forest now. I've seen that in, Mark's in-car video, and it's like, bloody hell, well, going back 5-6 years ago, there wouldn't be many people there. Now, this historic championship, I think, I'm going to be controversial, is probably the most competitive championship and the most exposure championship. People want to come and see the historic cars because of noise and that.
Completely. It's about noise, isn't it? It's about
it is noise.
And I mean, they're not. There's lots of nice new cars, but a lot of them just look the same. Whereas, nothing looks like a TR7.
No, it doesn't.
Nothing sounds as amazing as sort of Seb's
Stratus. And then an Escort, full Escort BDG on full song, at night in the forest, as you've been there. And you hear it coming from miles away, and you see the lights in the trees and different bits, and you hear the gear changes, you hear everything, and that excitement and the car, the smell and everything, the heat, you can feel the heat sometimes, even if you're sat back from the stage, and everything. It is fantastic to see.